Alright, 5 reasons why X-Men Days of Future Past will suck. Reason 5. Inconsistent continuity. All of the X-Men movies are supposed to take place in one continuous timeline. If Mystique was Xavier's stepsister, how come she shows no attachment to or recognition of him in the original movies? If Beast was part of the team from the beginning, how come he's absent from the first 2 movies? Why do Mystique and Beast age slower than Professor X and Magneto? Why is Emma Frost a grown woman in 1962 and a teenager in 1981? If Sabretooth grew up with and spent a lifetime by Wolverine, who was the guy in the first movie that didn't know Logan, Cyclops, or the Professor? How is Alex Summers, aka Havoc, Scott's younger brother, a grown man in the 1960s, whereas Scott, in the original X-Men trilogy, is depicted as a man in his 30s? How is the Professor crippled at the end of First Class, and then standing in flashbacks during the original trilogy? Why are we told the Professor and Magneto built Cerebro, then we see Beast building it? Why are we told Magneto built his helmet, but then we see him steal it from Sebastian Shaw? Why is Moira McTaggart a young CIA operative in First Class and a young doctor in X2? Are they honestly expecting Days of Future Past to explain all these holes away? Reboot. Reason 4. The franchise has been too Wolverine-centric and will continue to be. Don't get me wrong. I love Wolverine as much as any kid who ever stuck butter knives between his knuckles at dinner. I wouldn't dream of telling an X-Men story without having Logan play a major role in it at some point. But the last 5 movies have been too much. It's basically been the Wolverine show. It's not like he's done right either. When they try delving into his character, it's all about Gene this, or what they did to me that. If this was all Wolverine did in the comics, he wouldn't make it past 6 issues. We need a Wolverine who has matured past his teenage years, and is actively involved in helping others. Should he still be a selfish jerk? Sure. But they've been playing him as a self-involved, stuck-in-the-past guy. Also, the more time you spend cutting away to Hugh Jackman having another angsty moment or claw-popping nightmare, the less time you spend building a rich environment around him. And he's only the biggest example on a long list of other characters that got a raw deal. Instead of bitter rivals with a long checkered history, Sabretooth was a 2-bit henchman. Instead of Professor X's abused stepbrother, Juggernaut was a complete fucking joke. Which brings me to my next point. Reason 3. Oh, the story fails? Fanservice clusterfuck. X3 was a great example of this. After X2, everyone wanted to see a Dark Phoenix saga, but they also wanted more Colossus, and other fan favorites like Juggernaut and Angel. The list goes on and on. The studio and director accommodated and just seemed to go, okay, well, whatever you guys want, aka whatever puts asses in the theater seats. Ticket sales are what matters most after all. And then they just made that movie. I wouldn't be surprised if there was a suggestion box outside the 20th Century Fox studio where random passerbys wrote plot points like, you should give Juggernaut an Australian accent with a cool one-liner like, I'm the Juggernaut, bitch. And then kill Cyclops right in the beginning of the movie a la Johnny Cage in Mortal Kombat Annihilation because, why not? It was a similar type of throwaway film. X-Men First Class. Now, if this were just a superhero movie, it would have been pretty good. But it was supposed to be the X-Men, fresh and young. But again, they placed every mutant they could dig up and just shoved them right in there. And another thing fans have been wanting forever is Sentinels, and it looks like we're going to get it. But we also want Bishop, and many clamored for Quicksilver. By the way, have you seen this? Yeah. Does anyone see a pattern here? Speaking of which, reason 2. Even when you get what you want, it's never right. So X3 came along and said, we're going to throw every mutant ever mentioned in this movie, no matter if they come from different time periods or titles. Everyone expected a Dark Phoenix movie, but we got a huge load of shit. Hey, remember Deadpool and X-Men Origins Wolverine? Yeah. They took his mouth and replaced it with eye blasts. Laser eyes? Swords that came out of his arms? The merc with a mouth had his mouth sewn shut. So be careful what you wish for, folks. Unless you want more of that. Reason 1. No one knows anything about the property. At all. If you read comics, or remember the Saturday morning Fox Kids show at the very least, or both, then you'll recognize that Days of Future Past is actually one of the most popular storylines that ran in the Uncanny X-Men, which alternated between present day and an alternate dystopian future. But that's just it. No one involved with these films is ever familiar with the original content, and they're so keen on being artists that they don't care who they piss off or how badly they pervert characters with their interpretations. Peter Jackson's obsessive attention to detail while making the Lord of the Rings trilogy is a very rare example of what happens when geek directors who truly love the source material get the green light to make these movies the right way. The entire X franchise has fallen victim to shortcomings many in the current crop of superhero films have lately, in that they too often avoid opportunities to summon tangled feelings and complex characterizations. Qualities that make films worth watching. Instead, they have far surpassed the point where they flat out suck. But for the time being, they're still cash cows for Hollywood by virtue of their basis in the familiar and beloved.